Hello and welcome to episode 117 of Kaiju Curry House. I'm Connor and I'm joined today by Alex and Paul. And today we are covering a very special film that is very dear to my heart. Oh, he's already shaking his head. That is, of course, Godzilla versus Megalon. A controversial film and basically what many regard as one of the lowest points of the Showa Godzilla series. Or is it? We will find out. But first, Alex, what have Kaiju been up to?
Well, thank you very much, Connor, for asking me. I recently rewatched a couple of the sort of late 60s, early 70s Showa movies, kind of in preparation for my return to the podcast after kind of my break from it. And in close succession, I watched Son of Godzilla, bless it in all its glory. And I also watched Godzilla vs. Megalon, which we'll discuss very soon. But I've been saving this story for a while. And it's not very recently, but in terms of kind of not talking about it on this show, it's relevant and recent. So have you ever, Paul, watched a film with a very overtired child?
Yes, they're normally quite tired. I don't know about overtired.
All children are overtired. The reason why I ask is because one evening, my eldest, she's downstairs, other daughter, we're all together, cuddled up, and my son is happily asleep. And I was like, tell you what, I'm going to put on a Godzilla film for you. Because the last time I said I'll put on a Godzilla film for you, I played the new Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I'd forgotten there's an F-bomb in it. There's quite a lot of swearing. Paddington's mum dies in it. It's a bit of a mess.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And my other half, bless her, she's kind of looking at me going what the were you thinking? If this was your idea to introduce the family to Godzilla, you got it wrong. So I had a second chance and I thought, all right, what is the absolute epitome of safe for Godzilla? And I was like, Son of Godzilla, because it's so kind of hammy. And I played it, but the reason why I mentioned kind of overtired children was that what I did not foresee was that one of my kids became very emotionally invested in Minya. Am I saying it right?
Little Godzilla? Minya,
yeah.
Trog for short, but
yeah, troll for short, yeah. And she got very, very emotionally invested in him. And every time Minya became distressed, she became distressed.
Oh no.
And she was crying at one point when the Kamakuras jump on it and start slashing at it. She was screaming, go, no, get up, save yourself. She was absolutely distraught. And my other half's kind of cuddling her, looking at me again, going, what have you done? Why do you keep playing these awful films for us? But fortunately, this time round, it was just funny. And it was unclear whether kind of our child was playing up to it or not. But I mean, they were very tired. But by the end of it, this journey that we went on with kind of, are they going to be okay? Are they going to cope with the fact that, Minya nearly dies, and it's kind of ambiguous that Daddy Godzilla freezes with Baby Godzilla at the end, but no, we got there. But yeah, that was the big thing that I've done. So thank you for kind of coming on that journey with me.
Just quite a sad ending, isn't it?
Yeah, slightly sad, yeah. Because I was like, you'll love this film. And all the kids loved it. But they were kind of like,
oh. So they're just going to sleep at the end.
Yeah. I mean, so there you go.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, it's fine. Connor, what are your thoughts on that before kind of...
just don't show them Godzilla's Revenge then, because that has more Minya abuse in it. So,
Is that the one where, there's a parallel story of Minya standing up to a bully in Gabara,
yes.
whilst the little Asian boy stands up to the school bullies?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I thought that's the film you were going to say you showed them.
Yeah.
The reason why I did not play that was because on the Criterion collection, there's no English dub.
Oh, right. So it's the All Monsters Attack. All right.
So I've been governed by what as a dub.
Yeah. It's reasons like that as a Godzilla fan myself, who's been collecting VHSs, DVDs, and Blu-rays for a long time, it's very important to keep a hold of like these old DVDs or videos, especially if they have the English dubs on it. Because if you think about it, like stuff like, let's say, the original Destroyer Monsters dub or the Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, that dub, that's practically lost to time now. And the same could be said about Gigantus the Fire Monster. It's not on the Criterion set, but if you track down that old classic media DVD, you'll find it.
Definitely. I mean, thinking about that, different genre but same problem. When we had Tiffany Grant on from Evangelion, I remember that we had them on as a guest around the time when Netflix got the rights to Evangelion for a rerun, same show, no changes, and it was around the time of kind of the rebuild of Evangelion was happening, but they just kind of went, you know what, let's just get the rights to Evangelion for a bit and run it. But they redubbed it. I don't know why. They just decided, you know what, all of the original actors and actresses that everyone loves, we're not going to re-employ them. We're going to get a load of random new actors, annoy everyone. And suddenly my box set DVD, not Blu-ray, box set of Evangelion went from being £70 that I paid for it to £700 because everyone kind of had this fan knee-jerk reaction of, no, we want the originals. And of course, no one kept their originals because people have been chucking things out in favor of digital.
Yeah.
And then the problem came up of, well, what happens when the newest digital version is trash?
Yeah, exactly. The distributors should take note with like what Arrow had done with the Gamma set, where they included the ADV dubs as well as the UK dub for Gamma Girl in the Universe. So
they've got both dubs on there.
Yeah, the Gamera like serial box set, like the big one, and just the ordinary small size that doesn't have all of the comics in. It's got every version of the dub. I mean, Arrow,
Arrow are good.
Out the park. Yeah, they are. I mean,
they respect it, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, yeah. Connor, what have Kaiju been up to?
Oh, right. So, recently I've been trying to catch up on my Ultramans as of late. I've had several DVD box sets just sitting on my shelf that I haven't watched. So, I've watched the entirety of the Showa series. I've now moved on to the Heisei series, starting with Ultraman Tiga here. Unfortunately, unlike, say, like the Showa series, Mill Creek was not Mill Creek, the distributor of these box sets, wasn't able to get Blu-ray copies. So unfortunately, we have to stick with standard definition, which, to be fair, Ultraman Tiga was filmed on video. So regardless if it was on Blu-ray or not, it was going to look terrible. So
it's not a bad thing, is it, sometimes, for not be in HD? We can make do with how it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as much as I do like say restored versions of films, and all that, because I'm very into collecting 4K films. I think that something is lost, like the magic, if you could call it the magic of like watching these things. It's like because I had a thought the other day, and it was I remember my VHSs that I had as a kid of like various Godzilla films, and as an adult, it's a different experience just popping in a DVD or a Blu-ray of a Godzilla film compared to, I don't know, just watching it on a VHS. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but yeah. But regardless, Ultraman Tiga is a pretty good series so far from what I've watched. I've only watched 3 episodes so far. Bearing in mind that this was made after, I think, a 15-year hiatus since the last live-action Ultraman series as well. So at this point, Ultraman was practically a dead franchise, and this series apparently brought it back. So, yeah. So I've been watching that, and I also got some mail. I got some mail, folks. Ooh. Yes. Yeah. So PS Publishing, I think I mentioned this in the previous episode. They recently released a nice hardcover volume of Edgar Wallace's original script for King Kong, right? Featuring this Bob Eggleton artwork that has completely just disappeared because of the screen.
I can't see anything.
It's so good that you vanished.
Yeah, it's so good you have to buy it yourself to appreciate it. But yes, so this is an intro. So I've read this. I've read the whole thing, right? Right. It's just got a bunch of features on Edgar Wallace and the making of King Kong and all that. But basically, I think the people that produced this book have got a grudge against Marion C. Cooper a bit, because the first quote, because you know that these books sometimes have quotes at the start, right? The first quote says this. The present script of Kong, as far as I can remember, hasn't a single idea suggested by Edgar Wallace. Marion C. Cooper, 1932.
Wow.
When in actual fact, almost most of the Skull Island scenes is in this original script. Although it's different, you know, it's a very different story. It's like almost like a what if, pretty much. So Carl Denham, for instance, only appears in like the second act for the most part. You know, it actually focuses on a bunch of convicts that have been shipwrecked onto Skull Island, right? But apart from that, you know, it's practically the same story. It has the same climax of Kong getting shot down on the Empire State Building. Fair warning, though, to those who want to purchase it. This was a script written in the 1930s. Right. And unfortunately, there's some words in it the characters use that weren't appropriate then and were not appropriate today. I'll just say that. Which is, it's unfortunate, but it is a part of history. And, you know, it's really just...
Is it the same ilk as Godzilla versus King Kong, the 60s one, where you've got... Japanese actors in blackface giving local children cigarettes, that kind of.
No,
that was a high point for Toho. That was great.
Yeah, that was great.
No, it's certain words. We'll just I can
imagine.
Yeah. As well as a few other stereotypes in there. That is. Yeah, I mean, I know that the original King Kong has that scene with the natives in it. But I think what's described in here is slightly worse. I'll just say that. Yeah. But so again, you know, it's a piece of history. It happened. This is like a 90-year-old script at this point. You know, he's like
90 years. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it is what it is. It's really it's mostly just something for like the diehard Kong collector. I'll just say that. Yeah. But that's practically all I've done recently, just the Kong book and the Ultraman Tiga. Paul, you're next. What have Kaiju been up to?
I am next. Thank you, Connor. So, what have I been?
Paul, you're next.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Right, so what have I been up to? Well, have either of you heard of a film called The Terror Within?
Terror rings a bell.
Such a generic name, isn't it?
It is a bit generic, isn't it? It's an 80s monster movie, and it's very much a case of they saw Alien and thought, right, let's do that ourselves, but not as well.
That's
so it's set on Earth. Something's happened. I don't know if there's been a war or pollution or what, but basically it seems that topside is uninhabitable, and we're following a group of scientists who are living underground who occasionally go out just to see what's going on, and they come across a cave of people. We're like, oh, people are surviving on the surface. That's good. Unfortunately, most of them are dead, but they do find one woman alive, and there's these creatures called gargoyles, which are on the surface, and they're killing any living thing up there. So they managed to bring the woman in. Great, she goes in, and it turns out she's pregnant.
Do they perch on rooftops and spill water, the gargoyles, or?
To be honest, it's just it's set in a desert, so you don't really, there's nothing for them to perch on, and even then you just kind of see their shadow. So you're not seeing much. But anyway, the woman's brought in. She's pregnant. Oh, great, we're gonna have a baby. But then suddenly it's like, wow, she was like a week pregnant when we caught her. The quarter saved her, and now the next week she's 6 months pregnant. What's going on? That's not right. And so
it's obviously a blessing.
Obviously, it's a blessing. Yes, this baby just really wants to grow quickly, and then the baby kind of bursts out of her belly and runs into an air vent, which is all very similar.
See, I was expecting you to say that it was going to be like a really happy, safe delivery.
Oh,
you've come with a curve, like a real curve.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the terror within. I guess the name could be confusing, but no, there's actually this terror within the person that escapes. Yeah,
like the name.
Yeah, it is in the name, and then it's just like a cat and mouse thing. But the thing is, they show the monster pretty quickly, and much like when you see the alien in Alien, it's for a split second, just like a round. That's it. He's like, okay, that's good. That's all we want to see. This is seen very quickly and outstays its welcome very quickly because clearly they don't have a budget to make a realistic looking monster.
Oh dear.
And so unfortunately, it had promise. It could have been, a decent Alien type film, but unfortunately, the effects do let it down. It's just we don't need to see that much. But it was like I haven't seen it before. I hadn't heard of it. I just saw it like scrolling through films. I was like, oh, I'll give that a whirl.
On your Kaiju alphabet rating, what would you have given it?
Oh, what are the letters again?
We have K for killer.
It was killer or amazing or it's all. I want to say like it's all right. Maybe I feel like it's somewhere between it's all right and just bad. But it wasn't so bad. It was unwatchable. It's just there's so many better iterations of that type of film out there that I couldn't recommend it.
I mean, I know this is a conversation for another time, but I feel like the mid to late 80s were kind of saturated with movies that kind of saw, The Thing, Alien, and it kind of went, I've got an idea. Let's do what they did with a quarter of the budget, and I promise you it'll work. Rather than having a necromorph in for a split second, okay, well, what was the part that scared everyone in Alien? Oh, well, it was the chest burst. Okay, we'll have that. It's just it makes me think of like Humanoids from the Deep and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, dare I say, very kind of exploitation, very much focused on the, how does the alien, evolve and spread? Oh, well, of course it rapes the women. Of course it does. It's like
thinking about it. So we have got Alien, the terror within. Humanoids from the Deep. There's probably a whole bunch of them, isn't there?
There's tons of them.
Yeah.
Does it have the dummy in it, like the the ventriloquist dummy in it? Or...
Yes.
I mean, if you were looking for something to watch, you hadn't seen it, it's not all bad. It just isn't all great either. Other than that, I started to watch Evangelion, funnily enough, with Tiffany Grant as the dub.
Have you seen it before?
I have seen it before, but I'm watching not the Netflix releases, but the one where they've like condensed them. So it was Evangelion 1.11.
Yeah, the rebuild. The
rebuild. Yeah. So I've watched 1.11 and 2.22.
I know it's pretentious. Yeah.
And then it's 3.01.
Something like that. Yeah.
Then it's followed up by 1.0 plus 3. I'm like,
I'll just say that those rebuild films is not the original Evangelion story from the show. It is like almost like a reboot, pretty much.
Well, it's because I'm watching it, I'm thinking I recognise parts of it, but it feels like other bits I don't remember, and bits I do remember aren't there.
So like the first film is practically just like a condensed version of like
Of episodes 1 to 5.
yeah, and then the second one they change it halfway through so
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's. I
So have you
can't
both
remember
seen
exactly.
all of them?
So I've seen Rebuild 1, and I think I've seen snippets of 2, but I feel like, and I know it's such a cop-out excuse, but I feel like Rebuild 2 and 3 kind of came out when my son Angus was born. I was just so kind of busy with parenting, they just kind of slipped me by. And I almost kind of did that silly hipster thing of, oh, well, I've missed it now. No one's talking about it. Now it's too late to watch it, which is nonsense. But Evangelion, the original, I kind of followed very closely and I've watched it many times. And I really enjoyed Rebuild 1. And I kind of, I remember vividly that you kind of got the first 5 angels, and it kind of concludes with Ramiel, the angel of lightning, which is kind of like, it looks a bit like almost like a prism.
Oh yeah, I
It's
remember
the
that one.
blue
Yeah,
prism.
the blue prism. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the one they're taking out with the sniper, isn't it?
that's right.
That big- yeah.
And Ray in Ava Unit 0, gets
Yes.
toasted. What did you think of it?
Well, so far I'm enjoying it. I think
Yeah.
it's good. It's like, I mean, they've condensed it into essentially like a bunch of films. So rather than watching these individual episodes, I'm now just watching a few feature films as not a trilogy, but a quadrilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only seen 1, 2, and 3. I started watching the fourth one and then I fell asleep. So
I think they're an acquired taste,
yeah,
and I think kind of
but
I like the Evangelion genre of films and TV episodes because, like, you go in there and it kind of sets the premise as being a fairly generic mecha anime with some kind of random Old Testament Jewish mythology kind of thrown in there, and like lots of kind of heavy anti kind of faith stuff thrown in. And then halfway through, it's very clear that Hideaki Anno had a nervous breakdown and was like, screw it, I'm going to make this a psychological horror, which it worked for me, but I can see why a lot of people kind of go, what the heck is this? Like, what is it? And I feel like the Rebuild films, they've almost doubled down on that further and kind of gone, you know how people are really pretentious about Evangelion? We're going to be even more, we're going to out-pretense them. So like having, what's the first film called? 1.11. What's the second film called? 2.22. It's like, okay, all right, fine.
But yeah, so I'm going to watch. Yes, I watched 1 and 2. I'm going to watch 3 and 4.
Yeah,
I have watched all the original episodes and then the Death and Rebirth films.
Yeah,
which I'm assuming are all somewhere in there.
Yeah,
but then padded out with other bits. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
they're all there. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
That's good. And then one final thing, because I've actually been up to a bit. I've also read a book, which Joe is not here to hear.
You read a book?
So there's a trilogy of books, the Venus trilogy, which may or may not ring any bells, by Otis Adalbert Klein.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was in 1924. Apparently, he had a bit of a competition, I think it was, with Burroughs. Like those two were like, I don't know if he was ripping off his work or quite what it was. And they're trying to outwit each other.
Edgar Rice Burroughs did write a series on Venus called Carson of Venus as well. Yeah. But I think that came later on. I think at the time he was just doing the John Carter stories. So yeah.
Right. Okay. So he was doing something on Mars, wasn't it? It was John Carter of Mars, and this guy was like, "That's a good idea, but I'm going to do it on Venus." Or something similar. I mean, it's pulp. It's great fun.
Nothing wrong with pulp.
It's. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of like he's an Earth man who's like at the theater, and he goes out to the bar, and the barman says like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" or something. And he shows him a picture of the guy in the newspaper. He's like, and it says that you're going to be here, and you're not sure what you're doing. And he's like, "Oh, that's weird." And it says, if you're this chap, go to the foyer and something will happen. Sure enough, he goes to the foyer he gets kidnapped by the scientist, and he's able to transport this guy into someone else's body on Venus because they look similar.
As you do.
As you do. So he looks like someone who's on Venus, and he can travel his consciousness through time and space. And so he's now traveling, I think, into the past when there was a civilization on Venus, and he basically swaps bodies, escapes prison, rescues a princess, rises up an army, and it's just, it's ridiculous, but it's such good fun. I've really enjoyed it. It's part of a trilogy, so I'm going to read the others. But yeah, it's not a long book. It's my type of thing, really. I like this.
A bit of an escapism.
Yeah.
That's what pulp books are at the end of the day. They are escapism, quick fun, entertainment. Oh,
that's what I need. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Well, why don't we return in a moment for part 2, and let's jump into Megalon.
Yeah, that's nice.
Hello and welcome back to episode 117 of Kaiju Curry House. My name's Alex and I'm joined by Connor and Paul, and we're going to get round to discussing Godzilla vs. Megalon from 1973, which celebrated its 50th birthday just about a week ago, I believe, a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's 50 years old, gentlemen.
Yep.
Paul, have you ever heard of the film Citizen Kane?
Yes.
Okay, because that's why I'm trying to say it with a serious face. It's widely regarded as the world's greatest ever film.
Yes, but then not everyone has seen Godzilla vs. Megalon, have they?
Yeah. What do you honestly just no holds barred? What do you think, Connor and Paul, of Godzilla vs. Megalon? Because we all know what I think of it. So
yeah, I think I'm trying to think. Your words were it was like a life-changing film or something. Was a quote from you?
Did I say that?
So yeah, I'm sure you said something along those lines.
We've been recording for 4 years now, and I feel like the first episode I said it was a life-changing film, and I still stand by that. Yeah. But what do you think of it, Paul?
Okay, let me tell you. I watched this film recently in preparation of the episode, and there's the bit at the start with a boy on that weird little dolphin thing in the lake, and I was like, yeah, I remember this. The rest of the film I could not remember. So I was watching it, it seemed for the first time. My memory is bad, I'll admit that, but I don't remember what was going on here. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lost civilization of sorts who were on the surface and then sunk under, like Atlantis.
Seatopia, get it right.
Because they're living in Seatopia, which is a fantastic name. Were they called that when they were above the sea, or was that only when they were under the sea?
Don't think about it.
Okay, I won't think about that. And then we've been testing these nuclear weapons and we've destroyed a third of their continent. So mankind here is destroying this civilization. So we're the bad guys, right?
Completely. It's always us.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So mankind is bad. We're destroying this civilization who's laid back and just taken all this abuse from us. And they finally decide they're going to let their God, I don't know. They're going to let Megalon go up and teach mankind a lesson. Say, hey, you're going to destroy us. We're going to destroy you first. That's great. That's a fantastic idea. Obviously, they need Jet Jaguar to guide Megalon. So that's fantastic that the scientists up there were building this at the time that they wanted to attack.
Yeah,
that was great. And then when they get stuck, they then call upon Gigan to help.
Yes.
So the Earthlings of old knew the space race that summoned Gigan. Okay, so I mean that sounds odd because mankind doesn't know about Gigan, but these ones do from before.
I'm going to stop you there, Paul, because it sounds like you're implying that the plot's far-fetched.
Well, yeah, just a smidge, because I say I don't remember any of that, and I was watching. I was thinking, what are they talking about?
Can we just appreciate for one moment how nice the cockroach aliens are? That they actually basically let the Seatopians borrow Gigan for this film.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, very
mean,
kind.
like,
yeah, they're
I mean,
very
we're
nice.
fast forwarding a bit into the plot, but the fact that like halfway through, Seatopia's god, which they think will save them, is not strong enough to actually fight off the Earthlings. So they basically call in someone else to help out. They call in Gigan, except the suit looks a bit different.
Yep, that's right. They made a brand new suit for this film
But
for
they
some
needed a
reason.
brand new suit for Gigan, even though Gigan's not in it for that much.
And not to mention Godzilla versus Gigan was only made the previous year. So
Yeah, like, fact check me on this. I don't know if it's a different suit, but it certainly looks like a different suit. So, like, why would Toho, who were in a bit of financial kind of wibble at the time, why would they go to the cost of making a new suit? But it certainly looks different, unless, like, it's just had a new paint job. But I've never understood why Gigan's in it, other than let's just throw in an extra monster.
I mean, was he really pop? Did Godzilla vs. Gigan do so well that they thought, let's bring them back?
Godzilla versus Gigan did not do well.
It did not.
Did not do well.
No. Okay, because I looked at Godzilla vs. Megalon, and it said that was made for a budget of 1.2 million, and it made 20 million.
Yeah. It was commercially okay. I'm starting to doubt myself, and you know what? Right? Can we, while we're chatting, can we find what was the budget of Godzilla versus Gigan?
Yeah, so Godzilla versus Gigan. That's something that I can Google, or you can Google. But while one of us is doing that, you notice I didn't really mention Jet Jaguar much, because he is just the most pointless character in the Godzilla universe.
How dare you, Paul?
You know what? I'm talking trash. Godzilla vs. Gigan had a budget of 1.2 million. It made 20 million.
Well, there you go. So they both were really good performers.
They both were commercially successful.
So yeah, maybe the suit was just damaged and they had to repair it, and that's why it looks different.
My only other theory with the Gigan thing is they were doing a TV show at the same time called Zone Fire, which used Ghidorah and Gigan in that show, and I think that maybe they destroyed the Gigan suit in that show. That's my only guess. But
I mean, if you watch Godzilla vs. Gigan carefully, there's several points when Godzilla's fighting away, and that's the 1968 suit, I believe. And it's so battered that there is rubber tearing and flying off, which looks cool, but like it's not in a good state. When people say, "Oh, wouldn't it be great for collectors to get a piece of the suit?" There's nothing left of them.
No,
they're torn to shreds because you basically got these fully grown men climbing into suits and just jumping around like idiots. Of course, they tore up.
Yeah, I think
they treat the suits worse than my daughter treats her trainers.
The only surviving Showa suit, as far as the public's aware, is Mechagodzilla. But I think that's because it was probably made of a different material. Oh, well, it wasn't a metal suit. It was still made of rubber.
Don't crush me. Of course it's metal.
It probably had a coating that kept it, they able to survive a bit longer.
Yeah. And I believe, I think the other one was, the suit that you mentioned, the Godzilla suit, I think it's just a head that's left. Anyways, where were we? Oh, yeah. I forgot.
So in a nutshell, as you correctly said, Paul, at the very beginning, you've got the young lad, and he's kind of out on the world's most bizarre inflatable dinghy boat.
Yeah, boat.
It's a fish with two fish either side of it, that no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, no matter what generation you belong to, everyone has the exact same reaction to. My other half, Christy, had the reaction to it. My kids have the reaction to it. I have the reaction to it. You watch it and you go, what on earth is that kid sat in? What is it? Because there is no boat that exists that looks like that. It's just really random. It was made for that film, and no one watching it goes, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before." It's just really peculiar. And he starts to get into some trouble, and the water starts sinking very fast, and he kind of enters some kind of maelstrom and sort of like starts sinking down fast. And what do those two dads do? Oh yeah, fire the rocket
Well,
to rescue him.
you say two dads, but we don't actually know the relation to the kids.
No.
You know, it's just
Well, one's got to be the dad.
That was what Christy said to me. She was like, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but like, where's the mum in this? What relation are these two gentlemen to this kid? And why do they just let him go on his bike onto a road after their house has just been burgled?
I don't know. Maybe it's like a Doc Brown situation where the kid just shows up. You know, I don't know. But
Yeah.
But yeah, they fire the rocket, they rescue this little kid, their kid, and they bring him back. Then they're in the car, and it's clear that we're going to destroy the world one day because of nuclear testing. And then they go to their house, and it's been ransacked, but it's okay because Jet Jaguar's all right. Jet Jaguar, which they've been building, Jet Jaguar, which was a school-age competition for who can design a new suit for a Godzilla movie. Have I got that right, Connor?
You're partially correct. So, it was to design like a new superhero, pretty much, because Godzilla vs. Megalon was never originally going to have Godzilla in it. Right? It was supposed to cash in on like the likes of Ultraman and all that. The actual original design of Jet Jaguar had like a bird's head on it, like a bird's head with wings.
Sounds terrifying.
But yeah, what they did was they took that and they cut off the head and just he's got a robot head now, I guess. But yeah, you're right. Technically, a kid did design Jet Jaguar,
and like I'm not criticizing. It does show, yeah. Like I mean, look at it. It's there's no denying that the design for Jet Jaguar is very basic, but then how many people, even if they don't rate Godzilla versus Megalon, love Jet Jaguar? He has a pretty strong following.
Does he?
Oh,
yeah.
Paul?
Really? Sorry, I had no idea. I mean, because obviously this is the time when Godzilla was gearing towards the younger audience. It is going for that silly stage, and it made sense to have a kid's toy, an action figure come to life. That it's perfect for what it was going for, but I didn't realize there was much love for him. I hated the character, absolutely loathe him.
I mean, maybe I need to take off my kind of massively biased goggles for a moment, because I will defend this film to the day I die. But Connor, like, what's your impression, Jet Jaguar, from the kind of the fan community?
I love Jet Jaguar. I'm sorry, but I'm a sucker for just like big dumb Japanese mechs. Like from like the show era. Like I was talking last episode about Johnny Sokko and all that, and the robot in that one is literally got like a sphinx head or something like that, like an Egyptian sphinx. But it's Jet Jaguar's never bothered me. I don't know. It's just I just see it as just another tokusatsu robot.
Yeah, all he is.
Yeah, he's just with brightly colours and a big stupid grin. That's.
I mean, I a couple of years ago shelled out and bought the X Plus 30 centimeter scale Megalon, which I've got sat with me now.
Nice.
1 second. Here he is. Like there he is.
Amazing.
Nice.
And purely so that I could scale him up with this bad lad.
Oh man.
Yeah. Now, I have to say, kind of on buying Megalon, I do think the Megalon is a pretty pap villain. Like I'll just call it for what it is. I mean, you see it in the film, you can see it in the model. It's a cockroach.
Yeah, he's also probably the first total kaiju that's an idiot, apparently. Or just the way the Megalon acts in the film is just like he's completely useless without Jet Jaguar for some reason.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if Seatopia's god is Megalon, then they were doomed from the start, you know. But I feel like Godzilla versus Megalon as a film is the gift that keeps giving, because there's just so many things you keep noticing. Like when I rewatched it, I was just struck by how randomly violent the film is. It was something that Christy pointed out to me, because we're watching it and she was saying, hang on a second, this is targeted at kids. Its demographic is kids. And yet you've got, there's one scene when the burglars come back into the house again, and one of the main characters flies an aeroplane to the guy's face. And it's like, and it's quite a harsh scene because the aeroplane goes straight into his face and cuts him. And you got, a lot of references to saying damn and hell, but like quite aggressively. And you've got a lot of peril with this little lad being nabbed off the road while he's on his bicycle, and it's not clear if he's going to be okay. And he is fine, but like he gets roughed up a bit, and he gets kidnapped and shoved into the back of a van. And there's one point when Megalon kicks a rock, which just happens to fall on one of the bad guys and crushes him. And like it's a surprisingly violent film, and there is blood in it.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a kids' film as well. Not to mention, you mentioned the van, right? I don't know.
Yes, because in the back, do you remember this, Paul?
Well, I remember the kid and one of the dads being in the back of a van, and I was about to ask, because the bad guy wants them dropped off somewhere in the river, or he wants to kill. He won't just kill them. He wants them. He wants the bodies dumped in a giant container.
No, tell of a lie. He wants the kid and the dad chucked away and killed. No, but what Connor's referring to is the fact that the drivers of this van have two topless models as posters behind the steering. So they're driving along and you've got these posters behind them. And it's like, again, like, would you expect to see that in like a van? Yes. In a truck? Yes. Because we live in a sexist society. But like, that's not a kid's film. Like
no,
they are topless women. So it's very odd. I mean, to put it bluntly, it's very 70s.
I think a lot of the VHS releases for Megalon also cuts that bit out, or like slightly pans it over so you don't see the goods, as they say. Yeah. Oh man, this is all over the place. This film, in terms
it is.
Of like,
it is all over the
tone.
place.
But
I think kind of just I'm watching the time. Why don't we return back for part 3 in a moment? And Paul, it would be great if you could help the two of us unpick why this has such kind of a controversial reputation. Okay. But why, Connor, do we possibly love it so much? Why do we fiercely defend it?
Hello and welcome back to episode 117 of Kaiju Curry House, where we're talking about Godzilla versus Megalon, a seemingly love it or hate it film in the Godzilla franchise that I think perhaps I'm the downer of, because I'm not a fan of one of the heroes or villains, depending on which view you take. Because when I first saw that, when I rewatched this, I suddenly realized that actually mankind is evil. We're destroying another civilization that came before us. That's not very nice. So Jet Jaguar is like just a bad. He's being invented by bad people. Why do you like him? Why do you like this villain so much? And why do you not like Megalon? Because I actually really like Megalon.
It's not that I don't like Megalon. I mean, I adore this film and everything about it, but I acknowledge the fact that he is a weak villain. I was always aware of the fact that, growing up watching these films, Mechagodzilla was a menacing villain. In Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and when you see kind of that stock footage in Terror of Mechagodzilla particularly, you're very aware as the viewer that Godzilla gets his ass handed to him, and Mechagodzilla, shreds him to pieces, and he's quite frightening. And you look at the destruction that King Ghidorah does, like the fact that it fires lightning, for crying out loud. And it's no surprise that any kind of rehash, revamp, American take on Godzilla, they're not going to turn around and go, right, okay, right, lads, Legendary Pictures, we've got a new Godzilla movie coming out. What are we going to pick? Megalon, cockroaches. It's not going to happen.
I wouldn't jinx it, considering how popular it was during the VHS days.
Maybe.
I would like to see that. I would like to see Legendary or just Toho reinvented, like how Gigan for Final Wars went slim and very stylized.
Death metal.
Yeah, I would like to see Megalon, because I see Megalon actually as more of a beetle than a cockroach. I don't know if that what it actually is, but
I think it's like a mixture of bugs.
Came out, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, looking at it.
And like, what creature is it?
What viewers? What is this?
What is Megalon? But if Megalon could fly, if it's has it, because it does Megalon doesn't fly, but they look like wings, like a beetle.
Flies.
Megalon flies. Yeah.
Megalon flies.
Okay, yes. So, yeah. Okay. And Gigan's got an awesome chainsaw chest that we saw, cut Anguirus's face.
Yeah.
Megalon's got these awesome drill type things that again, perhaps if it wasn't a child's film, if it was more a different timeline of Godzilla, we would see that impale Godzilla or someone to more effect.
I mean, if the kid is like afraid of going to like B&Q and seeing a set of drills, maybe then. But
I think there's a lot of potential for Megalon to become really badass, but we didn't get to see it in this film. And Jet Jaguar just seems out of place in this film. Yeah.
That said, I think the most damage that Megalon really does in the film is he destroys a dam. That's it. I think
he destroys a dam and he kicks a rock, which conveniently lands on one of the villains.
Yeah.
That's pretty threatening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I loved him in Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee.
Yes.
Brilliant character.
Hey, and like, what a cracking game.
Yeah. I think it was to make up the fact that Megalon is like weak sauce in his own film. So they just made Megalon just ridiculously difficult when you play single player modes to fight.
Yeah.
So,
so what I will say just about Jet Jaguar, well, I didn't like him in this. Singular Point completely sold me on him.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked him in that, where he was more of a mech, where he looked like a robot and he was being upgraded. Whereas this was clearly, it looked like a superhero, like a failed superhero.
Can I drop a grenade in the conversation?
Go for it.
Okay, and like Joe's not here, so it's a bit cowardly of me. But like I wanted to say this, and then life got in the way, and I wasn't able to record with you for a bit. Okay, we're in a safe space. Okay. Drink. I did not like Godzilla Singular Point. Okay, I said it.
That's fair enough.
It's okay.
It was so sciencey.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it tried to be really clever with all this complicated stuff. It's like, we don't need any of that. The Godzilla fans, just give us some monster action.
I really tried Godzilla Singular Point, and no one can say to me, oh, it's because you don't like anime. Yeah, I'm not quite a weeb, but I like anime. I do like my anime. And yeah, I just could not hack Godzilla Singular Point. And I found it frustrating because I love Jet Jaguar. And I liked Jet Jaguar in that because I was like, yay, it's more Jet Jaguar, but I just couldn't hack Godzilla Singular Point.
That's sad.
I know.
But never mind.
They shafted Megalon a bit in that show as well. Because it's obvious that it's Megalon, but it's like, no, it's Kumonga. So.
Well, I'm feeling bad for Megalon now.
Do you know, there's something that no one has mentioned in this conversation, which surprised me. And it's the legacy that this film has through so many kind of memeable qualities to it. Like the fact that there's the kangaroo kick from
Yes,
Godzilla.
of course, yeah.
The fact that Godzilla breaks the laws of physics and rides along on his tail. I don't know how, but it's so iconic. Even if you don't rate it, it's got that moment. And the fact that, of the films that Mystery Science Theater picked, they went for Godzilla versus Megalon.
Good choice.
Yep.
And I mean, like, it's not surprising. It's one of the hammiest films of the Toho collection. But that was, I think, like a really powerful thing for creating a legacy for this film, because so many people saw Godzilla versus Megalon through Mystery Science Theater as kind of this is a crappy film. This isn't just a crappy film. This is a crappy film on par with early Gamera.
Mhm.
Because, Mystery Science Theater did all of the early Showa Gamera movies.
Right.
All of them. All of them.
Yeah.
They only did one Godzilla movie, and it was Megalon.
Yeah. Did they not do Eber Horror Deep as well? I can't remember if they did.
Oh, yes. No, you're right. So two then. Yeah, two. Yeah.
Yeah, which also has a lot of rock throwing in it.
Yeah.
So
It does, yeah.
The highlight of the
there's a lot
film.
of rock eat. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. Honestly, I think this film in general probably solidified basically for the longest time, basically the Western views of what a Godzilla film is as well.
Yeah.
Just like a hokey kids film, pretty much. Just like really bad rubber monsters. Really.
Yeah. I mean, this is where it's slightly different, I think, for viewers in Japan, and even possibly viewers like Joe, because the Godzilla movies that we had access to were very much restricted to what distribution rights there were. And when I think of the Godzilla movies that I saw, there were three. It was Godzilla versus Megalon, Godzilla versus Gigan, and the Godzilla versus Gigan one that I watched, the way I remember it, was dubbed, and it had that really wacky moment that I'll never forget where Anguirus and Godzilla talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they talk in English to each other, and you got the Godzilla, Anguirus, what are you doing? And it's like, what is going on? And even as a kid, I was like,
It's slightly not as bad in the Japanese dub because they use speech bubbles. Yeah. But they still do that weird reverse sound effects at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, so those two movies, and then I also saw Terror of Mechagodzilla, which as a kid I found a bit too scary because it is quite a freaky film.
It is strange if you think about it that Terror of Mechagodzilla was only 2 years apart, but yet the tone is like night and day between Megalon and Terror of Mechagodzilla. It's crazy.
I mean, I would play most Showa Godzilla movies for my kids, but I would not play Terror of Mechagodzilla because it's quite frightening.
Really, that was the first Godzilla film that I saw. I was
really?
like, yeah, I think I was like 10 or 8 when I saw that. But bearing in mind as well, this was like the first classic media DVD release, which cut out a lot of the violence in it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Which the later releases kept the violence back in, I guess, as well as other assets that were cut. Oops. Yeah. Anyway, back to Megalon. Yeah. So I would say, like, it's a detriment, I guess, but it's also a benefit because a film like Megalon did keep Godzilla in the public consciousness, I guess.
Yeah.
Just through the massive amounts of distribution, the fact that it was widely available via VHS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's another story in itself. It's just like the amount of VHS releases of Megalon is ridiculous. like just because of the sheer misunderstanding that they thought it was public domain, even though it wasn't, just because the American distributors forgot to put the proper copyright notice on the title screen. Oh man. Which is what my background is tonight, viewers. It's one of the many terrible VHS releases for Megalon. So, and you can see here, you got Megalon in the background of like his hairy head, I guess. But yeah.
And whilst I opted to not have it as my background, the VHS copy that I've got is the one set in New York.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is just, again, I don't know why that was the promotional art.
My only guess is the US release of Megalon was probably around the same time as Kong 76, which features the Twin Towers.
Okay, right, yes. So, what, Kong climbing the Empire State Building, Megalon and Godzilla fighting on the World Trade Center, kind of similar.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
Kong 76, Kong climbs the World Trade Center in that film.
Does he? Or is it the World Trade Center he climbs?
Yeah, because it was the tallest building at the time, which is what
the Jeff Bridges one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is what the Empire State Building was at the time in the 30s. Kong was the tallest building at the time. Yeah.
Did not know that. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's not worth kind of asking what everyone's rating is of this film, because you all know that it's a K for killer from me. But just if we were curious, Paul, what would you give this movie?
Oh, I don't.
Is it? It's all right.
I'm just trying to think, but perhaps because my perception was different to what, like rewatching it, it was different to what I thought it was. That threw me. As Connor said, it's probably introduced millions of people to Godzilla. It was.
Yep.
Shown so many times that everyone knows it. It's got some iconic scenes in, for better or worse. It is what it is. It made Toho more money. We got to see more Godzilla. I can't say it's bad because what it did for Godzilla films. It helped them make Terror of Mechagodzilla. It introduced us to Megalon, who should hopefully come back one day. And Jet Jaguar, just an odd.
What a guy.
What a guy! He doesn't do the thumbs up in this one, does he? Is that another film? This one,
Jet Jaguar does do that. The thumbs up.
The thumbs up, right? Yeah, that's another. Yeah, it's another great meme. Yeah, it's
yeah. I've seen many gifs of that. But yeah.
What film?
And you've got like the award for the most annoying kid.
Oh no! Watch the dub. The kid's even more.
I think it's the dub. That his voice just awful.
Nails on a chalkboard. But oh man.
Well, if nothing else, go on. If nothing else, just to round this episode off, Connor, what would you say?
If nothing else, go watch Godzilla vs. Megalon, because to me at least, it's a comfort film. So if you just want just a bizarre romp, you just want to watch just kaiju action, even if it makes no sense. Just watch Godzilla vs. Megalon. Although, fair warning, Godzilla's in the sea for the most part, and it's just swimming.
Godzilla's not in this much at all. No. I mean, you say this. I mean, like, if you said it's a comfort film. If Godzilla was a food, if Godzilla versus Megalon was a meal, what would it be, Connor?
What would it be? It would be a pot noodle, I guess. It's like, it's bad, but at the same time,
what pot noodle would it be? What flavor?
Chicken.
Our
and
viewers
mushroom.
need to know.
I don't know. Chicken and mushroom.
So basic.
Basic.
Very basic, yeah.
Basic, plain, yeah. And also, if nothing else, for Kong collectors, go buy the Kong Edgar Wallace script, I guess. But anyways, Paul, if nothing else.
If nothing else, we haven't actually mentioned it on this episode, but this is releasing on the 10th of April, Monday the 10th, and it will have been our 4th birthday on the 7th. So 7th of April 2019 is when we first released. So for anyone who's recently joined in the show, go to Spotify perhaps and listen to episode 1 and see what that sounded like.
See how far we've come.
See how far we've come. And also for coming up, so Friday the 14th is Burt Gummer Day. So everyone go watch a Tremors film of your choice.
Just Tremors 1. So
Connor, it's time you watch Tremors 2. It will change your life.
Yeah.
That's a good recommendation. I'd like to put out a recommendation to the Museum of Classic Science Fiction, who the owner of that, Neil Cole, my dear friend and cousin, he has been a guest on our show quite a while back. The reason why I mention him is because he has been doing really well. He turned his cellar of his house into a classic science fiction museum, but some of the props that he's got, real live props from films, have been incredible. His most recent acquisition was from the film Event Horizon. He got the chair from Event Horizon, which I thought is like as a curiosity piece is fascinating. He's got actual pieces from Alien, or that film that I don't believe exists, Prometheus. Loads of kind of stuff kind of from, like on the peripheral of our world, but certainly to those of us who love creature features and practical, horror. It's worth a look. That's Museum of Classic Science Fiction. Thank you, Connor and Paul, for indulging me as we've talked about Megalon. It's been, very enjoyable for me.
It's always a good time when we talk about Megalon. But, anyways, folks, you've been listening to Kaiju Curry House, episode 117. And as always, keep it kaiju.